So what are some of the lessons then we can draw from that? Well, one is that we want to focus on topics that are really of interest to the coachee, ideally. Now again, there are other times when we as the manager may be pushing something on the coachee because we feel there's an issue that has to be dealt with. Here's another interesting thought of asking for feedback at the end of the coaching discussion. Maybe not so much a hallway conversation, but certainly if it's a more of a conversation, a more formal type, could be a hallway conversation. But when therapists, social workers, psychologists did that, and a number of studies that were done, when they asked for feedback on their effectiveness in that conversation at the end of it, client attrition was cut in half. So people, the individuals being helped came back twice as often for further help. And the effectiveness as rated by the individuals and by the whole overall intervention went up by 65%. So here's one of the tools that we have in this approach is actually a feedback form for the coach that asks some of these questions. Did this conversation focus on the most important issue to me? The conversation was good use of our time. The purpose and outcome of the discussion was clarified early in our conversation. The general process and flow of the conversation worked well to meet our goals. I felt that you listened to me and understood my points of view. I'm leaving with some specific action steps to pursue. So there's more questions, but it's not a huge long. I think there's about 10 questions altogether. But that's just an example of looking for feedback to do the kinds of things that we've just talked about, to set up that relationship, we call it signaling a lane change. We're signaling the lane change between the parent-child kind of relationship that many manager-employee relationships are, to let's be adult to adult here, and let's figure out, and another concept, you may be familiar with the idea of servant leadership. Robert Greenleaf years ago brought forward that notion that strong leaders serve, support, or are good stewards to and serve the servers. And so we're bringing that concept in here as well. How can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I support you and help you to be more effective? That signals a very different kind of relationship than is typically the case in many workplaces. So asking for feedback changes the relationship from parent-child to adults. It changes who's in control, the feeling of who's in control of and has the power in the relationship. It often will change the coach's behavior as well, because he or she's getting that feedback and learning how to be more effective. And it can change the coach's attitude toward, the coachee's attitude toward the coach and the overall ratings that they might give them. In fact, kind of on that last point, one of the bits of 360 data we've gathered here is the overall rating of leadership effectiveness against how the perception of how often that leader is looking for opportunities to get feedback. And so whenever we're doing the Extraordinary Leader program, usually towards the end of the afternoon, I'll talk about how you need to go back and talk to your raters and tell them what you did with the feedback. Get them involved, ideally, your direct reports and others, get them involved in your development plan, that's a key part of what you ought to do. And when you do that, you're going to put yourself up on the scale, because this shows huge differences here, in perception between a leader who is never seen to be looking for any kind of input. If I want any of your bright ideas, I'll give them to you, kind of approach, to a leader who is constantly, remember one employee saying of a leader who was very much a servant leader, said, sometimes I get the feeling like he's working for me. And yeah, that's what strong servant leadership is. It's the upside down organization chart, it's all of that thinking around how can I be more effective? How can I help you? And so getting good feedback is a key part of that.